When women in the 1970s talked about that one voice that could set the mood just right, a few names always came up. Marvin Gaye had his magic. Al Green had his smoothness. Barry White brought the deep romance. But then there was Teddy P. His voice didn't just sell records, it sold fantasies. Janet Jackson admitted years later that as a young girl, she had dreams about being with Teddy as an adult because she genuinely believed he was singing directly to her. This man became the first black male artist to drop 5 consecutive platinum albums, and his concerts were so intense that he held women-only shows where the audience got chocolate teddy bears and lollipops while throwing their underwear on stage. But behind all that success was a darker story involving cut break lines, unsolved murders, industry feuds, and a night that would change everything forever. Teddy Pendergrass was born March 26, 1950 in Philadelphia, and his mother Ida knew he was special from the start. She'd suffered through 6 miscarriages before finally carrying Teddy to term, making him her 7th try, what she called the God number. His father Jesse left before he was even born, moved in with another woman, and never looked back. Teddy would only see his father twice in his entire life before the man was stabbed to death by one of his own friends when Teddy was just 12. Growing up without a father, Teddy found his place in church where his mother kept him constantly. At 2 years old, he stood on a chair and sang his first song in front of the whole congregation. By 10, he was ordained as a minister, but it wasn't gospel that would make him famous. As a teenager, Teddy fell hard for R&B after seeing Jackie Wilson perform at the Uptown Theater and watching women lose their minds over him. That moment planted a seed. He started playing drums, not with sticks, but with his bare fingers, teaching himself by ear while working at his mother's restaurant where famous stars would come through. He ran with gangs for a while, even spent time in juvenile detention after a wrongful robbery arrest, but music kept pulling him back. His first solo song went absolutely nowhere, so he went back to drumming for different groups around Philly, playing for Little Royal and then the Cadillacs. That's when Harold Melvin spotted him. Harold was rebuilding his doo-wop group, the Blue Notes, and needed fresh talent. He hired Teddy as a drummer, and they started grinding, performing in hotel lounges and clubs anywhere they could get a spot. Sometimes other members showed up late, and the club owners would dock their pay. But Teddy was always on time. One night when they were short on singers, Teddy showed Harold he could sing while playing drums at the same time. Harold realized immediately that this kid had something special, something that could take them to the top. He made Teddy the lead singer right then and there. The group started building a real fan base once Teddy's voice became the centerpiece. Producers Gamble and Huff, who had just launched Philadelphia International Records, caught one of their shows and knew they'd found something. They told Harold straight up that Teddy's voice was the reason they wanted to work with the group. But when contract time came, Harold made a move that would poison everything. He named the group Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, structured the deal so the money came to him first, and made sure everyone would assume he was the one doing all the lead singing. Teddy was the voice, but Harold controlled the brand. Their first single, I Miss You, made some noise, but their second track, If You Don't Know Me By Now, absolutely exploded. The song hit #1 on the R&B charts, peaked at #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and sold over 1 million copies. The hits kept coming. The Love I Lost went #1. Wake Up Everybody went #1. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes were on fire, but Teddy was getting tired of fans calling him Harold Melvin and not knowing his real name. Plus, Harold controlled all the money and was clearly jealous of how the crowds, especially women, went absolutely crazy over Teddy while barely noticing anyone else on stage. The breaking point came when Teddy demanded the group be renamed Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes. Harold refused. Teddy decided he was done, and when he left, the rest of the members wanted to go with him. Gamble and Huff tried talking him into staying because the Blue Notes already had an established fan base, but Teddy's mind was made up. His girlfriend and new manager Ta Delums backed him completely. Harold Melvin was furious, and people in Philly started hearing that he was putting threats out on the streets about Teddy. Things were getting dangerous. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Legends Underrated for more untold stories about the icons who shaped music history. Ta Delums wasn't just any manager. She was well connected in Philadelphia, formerly married to Eagles running back Izzy Lang, a former model who owned a beauty salon and was tight with Dionne Warwick and Nancy Wilson. She and Teddy had only dated for 2 months before breaking up, but she kept managing his career through Teddy Bear Productions. Then, just months before Teddy released his debut solo album, Taz was shot to death. Nobody was ever arrested. Nobody was ever convicted. The case remains unsolved to this day. Rumors spread through the industry that Teddy had something to do with her death, but he denied everything, and the whispers eventually faded into the background. In 1977, Teddy released his self-titled debut album with hits like I Don't Love You Anymore and The Whole Town's Laughing at Me. The album went platinum immediately. His second album, Life is a Song Worth Singing, turned him into a full-blown sex symbol. The single Close the Door spent 2 weeks at #1 on the R&B chart and went gold. Other tracks like Get Up, Get Down, Get Funky, Get Loose, and When Somebody Loves You Back pushed the album to double platinum. Then came Turn Off the Lights and Love TKO, and suddenly Teddy wasn't just a singer anymore, he was a cultural phenomenon. They called him the Black Elvis, the teddy bear. He started doing those women-only concerts where the energy was so intense it became legendary. But success brought new problems. Teddy had power in Philadelphia, and a lot of people didn't like that. He won an American Music Award for Favorite Soul and R&B Male Artist in 1979. He bought a mansion with 34 rooms sitting on 14 acres with horses, a Learjet, luxury cars everywhere, and endorsement deals including his own line of Teddy jeans. But cops started following him constantly, looking for any reason to arrest or harass him. Mobsters tried extorting money from him. Someone cut the brake lines in his cars hoping he'd crash. Even Marvin Gaye accused him of stealing his style and copying his look down to growing a similar beard. The real problem, though, was that Teddy was having an affair with Marvin's wife, Jan Gaye, which only made things worse between them. Rick James claimed he tried warning Teddy about how he was moving in the industry. He told him to stop messing around with other men's wives and girlfriends because it was creating too many enemies. Teddy wouldn't listen. He had beef with the Isley Brothers, Bobby Womack, and several other major artists. Everybody wanted a piece of Teddy one way or another, and the pressure kept building. Then came March 18th, 1982. Teddy left a nightclub with Tanika Watson, a transgender performer and S-worker whose real name was John Watson. He was driving his Rolls Royce fast through Philadelphia when his brakes suddenly gave out. He lost control completely, crashed into a guardrail, and slammed into 2 trees. The car was destroyed. Teddy and Tanika were trapped inside, pinned in the wreckage for almost an hour before emergency crews could get them out. Tanika somehow walked away with just minor injuries, maybe a chipped tooth and some bruises. Teddy wasn't so lucky. He was thrown into the back seat during impact and suffered a severe spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the chest down. He was a quadriplegic at 32 years old. The accident immediately raised questions. Why were his brakes cut again? Who was Tanika Watson really, and why was Teddy with a transgender S-worker that night? Rumors about Teddy's sexuality exploded across the industry, but he never addressed any of it publicly. After 6 months in the hospital, doctors told him he probably only had about 7 years left to live. When he finally got home, Teddy fell into severe depression. He was suicidal and actually tried convincing his girlfriend, Karen Still, to help him end his life by giving him an overdose of sleeping pills since he couldn't do it himself because of the paralysis. Karen had been one of his backup dancers before the accident, and she genuinely loved him. She refused to help him die and instead stuck by his side through years of depression and insomnia. She reminded him constantly that his family, friends, and millions of fans were still supporting him and believed in him. Slowly, Karen helped Teddy find motivation again. He started working to regain his strength and his singing ability. It wasn't easy, and it took years, but Karen never left. Teddy eventually married her around 1987, recognizing that she'd saved his life in more ways than one. Make sure you're subscribed to Legends Underrated because the comeback story gets even more unbelievable. Getting back into music wasn't simple, though. Teddy was ready to record again, but most record labels didn't want to take a chance on an artist in a wheelchair. The industry can be cold like that. Finally, Asylum Records gave him a shot, and he recorded an album called Love Language in 1984. The album featured a duet with an unknown 21-year-old singer named Whitney Houston on a track called Hold Me. That song became Whitney's first chart hit, but there was an unexpected consequence. Because she appeared on Teddy's record, the Grammys didn't consider her a new artist the following year, and she lost out on the Best New Artist award in 1985. Whitney was upset about that for years. In 1985, Teddy made his first major public appearance since the accident at the Live Aid concert in Philadelphia. Almost 100,000 people were there in person, and 2 billion viewers across 150 countries watched on television. When Teddy rolled out on that stage, the crowd went absolutely wild. It was an emotional moment that showed the world he wasn't finished yet. But just 1 year later, in 1986, Teddy was involved in another serious car accident. He crashed his specially equipped van into a utility pole and suffered a 4-inch gash to his liver along with cuts on his legs and feet. His nurse who was with him got facial bruises and a broken thumb. Both survived, but it felt like Teddy couldn't catch a break. He released the album Joy in 1988, and it peaked at number 54 on the Billboard 200, but hit number 2 on the R&B chart, his highest placement since the late 70s. The title track Joy went to number 1 on the R&B charts for 2 weeks. He kept making music through the 90s, but his focus shifted more toward giving back. In 1998, Teddy founded the Teddy Pendergrass Alliance, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping people with spinal cord injuries. That same year, he released his autobiography, Truly Blessed, where he finally told his version of everything that happened. In 2002, after 15 years of marriage, Teddy divorced Karen. It shocked people who remembered how she'd stood by him through the darkest times. 4 years later, in 2006, he met a woman named Joan Williams, and they got married in 2008. But by 2009, Teddy's health was declining. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and underwent surgery that was considered successful, but the recovery was brutal. His body had been through too much. On January 13, 2010, Teddy Pendergrass died of respiratory failure. He was 59 years old. But the drama didn't end with his death. Teddy left his entire estate to his wife, Joan, which immediately caused problems with his children. His son, Teddy Pendergrass Jr., claimed that Joan's copy of the will was fake and that he had the real, legitimate version. The case went to court, but the judge ruled that Teddy Jr.'s copy was actually the fake one. Joan then turned around and sued Teddy's kids for $850,000 in legal fees, claiming they caused her humiliation, damaged her reputation, and put her through emotional distress and anxiety. The whole situation turned ugly and public. There's been talk for years about a Teddy Pendergrass biopic with Tyrese Gibson set to play the lead role, but the project keeps getting delayed and nobody seems to know when or if it'll actually happen. Lee Daniels reportedly acquired the life rights at one point, but the movie remains in development limbo. Teddy Pendergrass left behind a complicated legacy. He was one of the greatest R&B voices of all time, a man who could sell out arenas with just his voice and presence. But his life was also filled with violence, controversy, mysterious accidents, and questions that never got answered. Who really cut his brake lines? What actually happened the night of that crash with Tanika Watson? Was Ta Delums' murder connected to Teddy's career? We'll probably never know the full truth. What we do know is that Teddy P changed R&B forever and showed the world that even after tragedy strikes, you can still find a way to keep going. If this story opened your eyes to a legend you didn't know enough about, smash that like button and subscribe to Legends Underrated. Drop a comment below telling me which music legend you want me to cover next. There are so many untold stories out there, and this channel is dedicated to bringing them to light. Rest in peace to Teddy Pendergrass, the man with the voice that could stop time.